What happens when two of the most outspoken voices in American media sit down for what was supposed to be a friendly conversation, but instead turns into an absolute powder keg of accusations, interruptions, and jaw-dropping moments that nobody saw coming? You're about to witness one of the most explosive interviews ever recorded, where pleasantries get thrown out the window within minutes. And what starts as a simple question about policy turns into a full-blown confrontation that has everyone talking. Before we get into this absolute chaos, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling me your thoughts on what you're about to see, because trust me, you're going to have opinions. Now, let's dive into what really went down. The studio lights were blazing hot, the cameras were rolling, and Alex Jones was sitting across from Donald Trump in his Austin studio. The atmosphere felt charged from the moment Trump walked in. That signature confidence radiating off him as he settled into the chair. Jones, never one to hold back, had promised his audience this would be the interview of the year. And from the opening seconds, it was clear this wasn't going to be your typical softball political interview. "Mr. President, welcome back to the show," Jones began, his voice carrying that intense energy he's known for. "We've got a lot to cover today, and I know the people want answers. Real answers, not the scripted stuff we see everywhere else." Trump leaned forward, adjusting his tie. "Alex, you know me. I don't do scripted. Never have, never will. That's why I'm here. That's why your audience loves what we do. We tell it like it is." Jones nodded. But there was something in his expression, a hint of challenge. "That's exactly what I want to talk about. Because I've been hearing things, Mr. President, things that don't quite add up, and I think it's time we address them head on." The smile on Trump's face flickered for just a moment. "What things are we talking about, Alex? Because I'm an open book. You know that." "The border situation," Jones said, his voice rising slightly. "You made promises. Big promises. The wall, the deportations, the whole 9 yards. But what I'm seeing, what my sources are telling me, it's not matching up with what you told the American people." Trump's jaw tightened. "Your sources, Alex, with all due respect, I think I know a little bit more about what's happening at the border than your sources. I built more wall than any president in history. The numbers don't lie, but they do lie." "Mr. President," Jones shot back, pulling out a stack of papers. "These are the actual figures. The construction numbers, the miles completed, the funding allocations, and they're not what you've been saying in your rallies." The temperature in the room seemed to rise. Trump sat back in his chair, his expression hardening. "You're really going to sit here and fact-check me on my own accomplishments, on my own show appearance? This is what we're doing now." "This isn't about fact-checking," Jones insisted, his voice getting louder. "This is about accountability. You came on here. You talked to my audience. You made promises, and now I'm asking you to explain why things aren't adding up. That's journalism, Mr. President. Real journalism." Trump's hand came down on the armrest with a thud. "Journalism? You want to talk about journalism? Let me tell you something about journalism, Alex. Real journalism is about getting to the truth, not cherry-picking numbers to create a narrative. I delivered on the border. Ask the Border Patrol agents. Ask the people living in those communities. They'll tell you. I have asked them," Jones countered, leaning forward, "and you know what they're saying? They're saying the problems are worse than ever. The cartels are still operating. The drugs are still flowing. The human trafficking hasn't stopped. So where's the victory you keep talking about?" The tension was palpable now. Both men locked in a stare that could cut glass. Trump's face had gone red. That familiar look that anyone who's watched him knows means he's about to unleash. "You know what, Alex? I came here because I thought we were on the same team. I thought you understood what we were up against. The deep state, the media, the bureaucrats trying to stop everything we do. But now you're sounding just like them. Don't you dare," Jones said, his voice sharp. "Don't you dare try to lump me in with the mainstream media. I've been fighting this fight longer than you've been in politics. I've been exposing corruption when you were doing reality television. So, don't sit there and tell me I'm part of the problem when I'm asking you legitimate questions." Trump stood up, pointing his finger across the table. "Legitimate questions. You're ambushing me. That's what this is. You brought me here under false pretenses so you could grandstand in front of your audience and make yourself look like some kind of hero. Well, guess what, Alex? I see right through it." Jones stood up, too, matching Trump's energy. "Sit down, Mr. President. We're not done here. You agreed to this interview. You agreed to answer tough questions. And that's exactly what's happening. If you can't handle the heat, maybe you shouldn't be in the kitchen. Handle the heat." Trump's voice boomed through the studio. "I've been handling heat you couldn't even imagine. You think this is pressure? You think you asking me gotcha questions is pressure? I've dealt with entire governments trying to take me down. I've had intelligence agencies working against me. Your little interrogation here is nothing. The crew in the studio had gone silent, everyone frozen, watching this unprecedented confrontation unfold. Jones wasn't backing down, his face equally red now, his trademark intensity dialed up to maximum. Then answer the questions. Stop deflecting. Stop attacking me and answer the actual substance of what I'm asking you. I don't have to answer anything to you, Trump fired back. You're not Congress. You're not a judge. You're a radio host who's gotten too big for his britches. You invited me here for a conversation and instead you're treating this like a hostile deposition because you're dodging. Jones shouted. Every time I ask you something specific, you pivot to something else. You attack the question instead of answering it. That's politician behavior, Mr. President. And you're supposed to be different. That's the whole point. That's why people believed in you. Trump's eyes narrowed dangerously. Believed in me, past tense. Is that where we are now? You're already writing me off. After everything we accomplished together, after all the times I came on your show and gave you access nobody else would give you, now you're turning on me. I'm not turning on anyone, Jones said, his voice still elevated, but slightly more controlled. I'm holding you accountable. There's a difference. My audience deserves the truth. They deserve to know if the person they supported, the person they voted for, the person they defended through everything is actually delivering on what was promised. I delivered more than any president in modern history, Trump said, his voice dripping with anger. The economy was the best it's ever been, unemployment at record lows, taxes cut, regulations slashed, judges appointed, and yes, the border was more secure than it had been in decades. But you don't want to talk about any of that, do you? You just want to nitpick and find problems. Jones shuffled through his papers again. These aren't nitpicks, Mr. President. These are major policy failures that you're trying to sweep under the rug. The deficit exploded under your watch. The swamp got deeper, not shallower. You promised to drain it, but instead you filled your administration with the same kind of insiders you campaigned against. Trump's hand slammed down on the desk between them. That is absolutely false. Name one person I hired that was part of the swamp. One person. How about your Treasury Secretary? Jones shot back immediately. Former Goldman Sachs executive or your Commerce Secretary, billionaire investor with ties to every major corporation you claim to be fighting against? Or how about the lobbyists? You said no lobbyists, but your administration was crawling with them. Those people had expertise. Trump roared. You can't run a government without people who understand how things work. That's not the swamp. That's competence. But you wouldn't understand that because you've never had to manage anything bigger than a radio show. The personal attack hung in the air like a grenade. Jones's expression went from angry to absolutely furious. You want to go there? You really want to make this personal? Because I can make this very personal, Mr. President. I have information. I have sources. I have documents. And if you keep pushing me, if you keep deflecting and attacking, instead of being honest with the people who put you in power, I will release all of it. Trump's face was now a deep shade of crimson. Are you threatening me? On your own show, you're sitting here threatening a former president. Do you understand how insane that sounds? Do you understand what you're doing right now? I'm doing my job, Jones said coldly. Something you apparently forgot how to do. The words hit like a physical blow. Trump stood there silent for a moment, his chest heaving with barely contained rage. The studio remained deathly quiet. Every person present understanding they were witnessing something that had never happened before. Something that would be talked about for years to come. You just made a huge mistake, Trump said quietly, his voice carrying more menace in its calmness than it had in all his shouting. A huge mistake, Alex. You have no idea what you've just done. Trump froze, his hand still gripping his jacket. The command hung in the air between them, a line drawn in the sand that neither man seemed willing to cross or retreat from. For a moment, it looked like Trump might actually walk out, might storm off the set and leave Jones sitting there alone. But something in the challenge, something in the defiance of Jones's tone made him pause. You think you can order me around? Trump said, his voice low and dangerous. You think you have that kind of authority over me? I think you owe your supporters an explanation, Jones replied, not backing down an inch. And I think walking out right now on live television would be the most cowardly thing you could possibly do. It would prove everything I'm saying, that you can't handle real questions, that you run when things get tough. Trump's eyes flashed with fury, but he slowly, deliberately lowered himself back into the chair. Fine, I'll stay. But not because you ordered me to. I'm staying because I want your audience to hear the truth. I want them to hear how you've twisted everything. How you've become exactly what you claim to hate. Jones leaned back slightly, a hint of satisfaction crossing his face. Then let's continue. Let's talk about your personnel decisions. You fired more people than any president in history. Your administration had more turnover than a fast food restaurant. Chiefs of staff, communications directors, cabinet members, advisors. They came and went like a revolving door. Why? Because I demand excellence, Trump said immediately. Because I don't settle for mediocrity. If someone isn't performing, if someone isn't loyal, if someone is leaking to the press or undermining my agenda, they're gone. That's leadership, Alex. That's how you run things. Or it's chaos, Jones countered. It's instability. It's poor judgment in hiring. You said you hire the best people, but if you're constantly firing them, were they really the best or were you just wrong about them from the start? Trump's jaw clenched. Some people aren't who they seem. Some people get into government and they get corrupted. They get seduced by the media attention, by the swamp, by the people who want to maintain the status quo. I had to remove those people to protect my agenda. But you hired them, Jones pressed. You brought them in. You vouched for them. You stood in front of cameras and told America these were the best choices you could make. And then weeks or months later, you're firing them and calling them losers and traitors. That's not their failure, Mr. President. That's yours. The accusation landed hard. Trump's face contorted with anger. You have no idea what it's like to navigate Washington. You have no idea the kind of pressure, the kind of betrayal, the kind of sabotage that happens every single day. People smile to your face and then stab you in the back. People take positions in your administration just to undermine you from the inside. I had to be ruthless to survive. Survive? Jones's eyebrows shot up. You were the President of the United States, the most powerful position on the planet. And you're talking about survival like you were some kind of victim. You had all the power, Mr. President. All of it. If things went wrong, that's on you. Nobody else. Trump pointed an accusatory finger across the table. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Your Monday morning quarterbacking decisions you know nothing about. You weren't in the Oval Office. You weren't in the Situation Room. You weren't dealing with crisis every single day while the media lied about you and your own party undermined you. Then explain it to me, Jones said, his voice sharp. Explain why you appointed someone like your first Attorney General, someone you later called weak and disloyal. Explain why you brought in advisors who you ended up attacking publicly. Make it make sense because right now it looks like terrible judgment. Trump stood up again, this time pacing behind his chair. You want explanations? Fine. Let's talk about the Attorney General. I appointed him because I thought he was loyal. I thought he understood what we were up against. But the moment things got tough, the moment the Russia investigation started, he recused himself. He abandoned me. He left me exposed to a witch hunt that went on for years. He followed the law, Jones interjected. He had to recuse himself because of his involvement in your campaign. That's not abandonment. That's legal protocol. Trump whirled around. Legal protocol. It was a setup. It was designed to hamstring my presidency from day one. And he played right into their hands. A loyal attorney general would have fought for me, would have protected me, would have exposed the entire corrupt investigation for what it was. Jones shook his head. So, you wanted someone who would ignore the law to protect you personally. You wanted an attorney general who would put loyalty to you above loyalty to the Constitution. Do you hear yourself right now? I wanted someone who understood that I was being attacked unfairly, Trump shouted. I wanted someone who would stand up for justice instead of caving to political pressure. There's nothing wrong with expecting the person who's supposed to be the nation's top law enforcement officer to actually enforce the law fairly. But that's not what you're describing, Jones said, his voice rising to match Trump's volume. You're describing a personal attorney, not an attorney general. You're describing someone who works for you instead of someone who works for the American people. That's authoritarian thinking, Mr. President. That's exactly what you accuse the other side of doing. The word authoritarian seemed to strike a nerve. Trump's face went from red to nearly purple. Don't you dare call me an authoritarian. Don't you dare compare me to dictators and tyrants. I fought for freedom. I fought for constitutional rights. I fought to give power back to the people. Everything I did was about preserving American liberty. Then why did you attack the press constantly? Jones fired back. Why did you call journalists enemies of the people? Why did you try to intimidate anyone who criticized you? That's authoritarian behavior, Mr. President. That's using your power to silence dissent. Trump slammed his hand on the back of the chair. The press wasn't criticizing me. They were lying about me. Day after day, story after story, they made things up. They took things out of context. They created scandals out of nothing. I had every right to defend myself. I had every right to call them out. Calling them out is one thing, Jones said. Calling them enemies of the state is another. Threatening their credentials, threatening their access, threatening to change legal laws so you could sue them more easily. That crosses a line. That's not defending yourself, that's attacking the First Amendment. Trump's laugh was bitter and sharp. The First Amendment. You're going to lecture me about the First Amendment? You, Alex Jones, who's been deplatformed, censored, and silenced by every major tech company. You, who's been fighting these same battles, and now you're defending the media that wants to destroy both of us. I'm not defending them, Jones said firmly. I'm defending the principle. Yes, I've been censored. Yes, I've been attacked. But I don't want government power used to silence anyone, even my enemies. Because once you give government that power, once you say it's okay to shut down voices you don't like, that power gets turned on everyone, including us. Trump stood silent for a moment, who's breathing heavy. You're twisting everything. You're making me sound like some kind of tyrant when all I ever did was fight back against people who were trying to destroy me. Destroy my family. Destroy everything I built. I'm not twisting anything, Jones said quietly. I'm repeating your own words back to you, your own actions, your own decisions, and I'm asking you to account for them. That's not an attack, Mr. President. That's accountability. The two men stared at each other, the intensity between them crackling like electricity. Trump slowly walked back around the chair and sat down, his posture rigid, his expression a mixture of anger and something else. Maybe hurt, maybe betrayal. You used to be different, Trump said, his voice lower now, but still carrying an edge. You used to understand the fight we were in. You used to get it. What happened to you, Alex? Jones leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. Nothing happened to me. I'm the same person I've always been. But maybe you've changed. Maybe power changed you. Maybe being president made you forget why you ran in the first place. I never forgot, Trump said, his voice taking on a defensive tone. Every single day I remembered the people who voted for me. The forgotten men and women, the workers who had been left behind, the communities that had been destroyed by bad trade deals and stupid wars. I remembered them every single day. Did you? Jones challenged. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you remembered them during campaign season, but once you got into office, you surrounded yourself with billionaires and Wall Street executives and corporate insiders. The very people who created the problems you campaigned against. Trump's fist clenched on the armrest. I needed people who understood the economy. I needed people who could negotiate. I needed expertise, but my policies, my agenda that was all about helping the working class, the tax cuts, the deregulation, the trade deals, all of it was designed to bring jobs back and raise wages. But who benefited most from those tax cuts? Jones Press. The corporations. 3 million jobs created in my first 3 years. Unemployment for African Americans at the lowest rate ever recorded. Median household income at an all-time high. 7 million people off of food stamps. Energy independence achieved for the first time in 75 years. Renegotiated terrible trade deals that were bleeding this country dry. Moved the embassy to Jerusalem after decades of presidents promising and failing to do it. Rebuilt the military after years of neglect. Appointed 3 Supreme Court justices who actually respect the Constitution. Should I keep going, Alex, because I can do this all day? Jones didn't miss a beat. And what about the promises you broke? What about the infrastructure week that never happened? What about repealing and replacing healthcare? What about making Mexico pay for the wall? What about locking up your political opponents like you chanted at every rally? You conveniently forget about all of that when you're listing your accomplishments. Trump's finger jabbed toward Jones. Infrastructure was blocked by Congress. Healthcare reform was sabotaged by traitors in my own party. Mexico paid for the wall through the trade deal, through the economic pressure, through the agreements we forced them into. And as for political opponents, I could have gone after them, but I took the high road. I let the justice system work instead of weaponizing it like they did to me. The high road. Jones's voice was incredulous. You spent 4 years calling for investigations. You called for your attorney general to arrest people. You wanted political prosecutions. You just couldn't make them happen. That's not taking the high road. That's failing to do what you wanted to do. Trump circled around his chair, his movements aggressive and agitated. You're damn right I wanted investigations because crimes were committed. Real crimes. Spying on my campaign. Lying to federal courts, leaking classified information, destroying evidence, all of it documented, all of it proven, and nobody faced consequences. So, yes, I wanted justice. I wanted accountability, but the system protected them. Or maybe, Jones said, his voice cutting through Trump's rant, maybe there wasn't enough evidence. Maybe your allegations didn't hold up under scrutiny. Maybe you were wrong about some of it. Did that ever occur to you that you might have been wrong? The question seemed to physically impact Trump. He stopped pacing, turned slowly to face Jones, his expression a mixture of disbelief and fury. Wrong? You think I was wrong about the corruption? About the deep state, about the rigged system? Alex, you've spent your entire career exposing conspiracies, talking about shadowy forces controlling things. And now when I tell you I experienced it firsthand, when I tell you I saw it from the inside, you're questioning me. Jones stood his ground. I question everything, Mr. President. That's what I do. That's what I've always done. And just because you say something happened doesn't make it true. Just because you believe something doesn't make it fact. Evidence matters. Proof matters. And in a lot of cases, the proof you claim to have never materialized. Trump's laugh was harsh and mocking. The proof never materialized because it was buried. It was classified. It was redacted. It was hidden by the very people I was trying to expose. But you know what, Alex? This conversation right here proves my point. You've been compromised. They got to you somehow. Maybe it's pressure. Maybe it's threats. Maybe it's money. But something changed you. Nobody got to me, Jones said, his voice turning cold. Nobody compromised me. Nobody threatened me. This right here, this is me doing what I've always done. Asking hard questions, demanding answers, refusing to accept spin and deflection. If you can't handle that, if you think anyone who challenges you must be compromised, then maybe you're the one with the problem. Trump walked right up to the desk, separating them, leaning forward until he was nearly in Jones's face. I have done more for this movement, for this cause, than you could ever imagine. I sacrificed my business, my reputation, my family's peace, everything to fight for the people. And you have the audacity to sit here and tear me down, to question my motives, to suggest I failed. Jones didn't lean back, didn't retreat an inch. You did sacrifice a lot. Nobody's denying that. But sacrifice doesn't mean you succeeded. Effort doesn't equal results. And the American people deserve an honest accounting of what happened, not just a highlight reel of your favorite accomplishments. An honest accounting. Trump's voice rose again. You want honest? Here's honest. I walked into a system that was designed to destroy me. Every institution, every agency, every power center in Washington was aligned against me. They spied on me. They investigated me. They impeached me twice. They tried everything they could to remove me from office. And despite all of that, I still managed to deliver for the American people. That's the honest accounting. But you also had power, Jones countered. You controlled the executive branch. You had allies in Congress. You had supporters everywhere. You weren't some helpless victim. You were the president. And with that power comes responsibility. Responsibility to deliver on promises. Responsibility to make good decisions. Responsibility to admit when you're wrong. Trump pushed back from the desk. His hands spread wide in exasperation. I never claimed to be perfect. I never said I didn't make mistakes. But the scale of what I accomplished versus what I got wrong, it's not even close. Yet here you are focusing on the negatives, amplifying the criticisms, sounding exactly like my enemies. Maybe your enemies have some valid points, Jones said quietly. Maybe not everything they say is a lie. Maybe some of the criticism is deserved. Have you ever considered that? The question hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Trump's face went through a series of expressions. Anger, hurt, disbelief, rage. When he finally spoke, his voice was shaking with barely controlled emotion. I cannot believe what I'm hearing. I cannot believe that you, of all people, are sitting here defending the people who have tried to destroy both of us. Do you not see what they'll do to you? Do you not understand that if they take me down, you're next? Jones shook his head. This isn't about defending anyone. This is about truth, and the truth is complicated. It's messy. It's not all good or all bad. You did some things right. You did some things wrong. And pretending otherwise doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help your supporters who deserve honesty. It doesn't help the movement that needs to learn from mistakes. And it doesn't help you. Trump grabbed his jacket again, pulling it on with sharp, angry movements. You know what, Alex? I'm done. I'm done with this ambush. I'm done with your sanctimonious lecturing, and I'm done pretending like this is a fair conversation. You brought me here to make yourself look good, to boost your ratings, to create drama. Well, congratulations. You got it. Running away doesn't change the facts, Jones called out as Trump started moving toward the studio exit. Walking out doesn't answer the questions. Your supporters are watching this right now and they're seeing you refuse to engage when things get tough. Trump stopped at the edge of the set, turning back one more time. My supporters know me. They know what I've done for them. They know I fight harder than anyone. And they'll see this for what it is, a setup, a betrayal, and they'll remember it. Will they, Jones challenged, or will they wonder why you couldn't answer simple questions? Why you got so defensive? Why you attacked me instead of addressing the substance? You say you fight harder than anyone, but you're walking away from a conversation. What kind of fighter does that? Trump took a step back toward the set, his face a mask of fury. You really want to do this? You really want to go there? Fine, let's talk about you, Alex. Let's talk about your track record. How many predictions have you made that never came true? How many conspiracies have you promoted that turned out to be nonsense? How many times have you been wrong? Jones spread his hands. Plenty of times. I've been wrong about a lot of things. I've said things I regret. I've promoted theories that didn't pan out. The difference is I admit it. I own my mistakes. Can you say the same? I own everything I do, Trump shot back. Every decision, every policy, every word. But I don't apologize for fighting. I don't apologize for being aggressive. I don't apologize for doing whatever it took to advance my agenda and protect my supporters, even when it hurt them, Jones asked. Even when your decisions had negative consequences for the very people you claim to be fighting for. Do you own that, too? Trump's jaw clenched so hard it looked painful. Name one decision I made that hurt my supporters. 1. The CO response, Jones said immediately. The lockdowns you allowed, the spending you approved, the way you elevated people who gave terrible advice that hurt millions of your supporters. Small businesses destroyed, jobs lost, lives ruined, and you went along with it. Jones looked directly into the camera, that trademark intensity dialed up one final time. So, here's what I want from you. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, because this is the kind of content you're going to keep getting. Real conversations, real confrontations, real questions that demand real answers. And drop a comment below telling me this. Do you think I went too far, or do you think I didn't push hard enough? Because I want to know where you stand. I want to know if you think accountability matters or if you think loyalty should trump everything else. Let me know.